Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for February 22nd, 2017. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES right now. We've had a very aggressive start to the month, obviously. This is about as bullish a February as I can remember from beginning to end. First trading day of the month here, second tests the low and fails, and from then it's been straight on up. Got to a high of 23.65 here. One target that I mentioned to our group here recently is that 23.76 half is the last major target that we have on the board from our key range from August 2015. So that August key range where you had the impulse sell-off move, that's been the key range we've been using over the last year plus to identify some of these key rejections at the edges and also look for these targets. This right here is the 100% expansion target, and so we're likely headed right into that target here. 2400 is right above that, and so all pullbacks still are buying opportunities. Yesterday I mentioned to watch 51 half, 23.51 half as a key level for the day. That's the previous week's high. Holding above that level would imply more strength toward 23.76 half throughout the course of the week. Breaking back below 23.51 half opens up a return back toward recent support, which would be about 23.30s. So we could be looking at a little bit of a rotation back down. Again, it all depends on this 51 half. Any failure to hold that zone would rotate price back down. Again, any pullback would be an opportunity to buy this thing back up. So that's the idea right now. This thing is very, very bullish. All pullbacks have been buying opportunities. And for the most part, this hasn't even seen many pullbacks. It's only done holding patterns. For example, when this thing rallied here, there was no real pullback. Instead, it just held for 3 days, and then it continued onward in the previous session. So, very bullish market still. Very difficult to sell it. The idea is to look for pullback opportunities to get in cheaper and push to a new high. Let's take a look at the intraday time frame. Here's a look at the intraday. One thing with regards to the intraday is that after the recent rally here, price tends to digest the recent move. So you see this big push up. Yeah, a little bit of a digestion here. It rallied again. Now it's holding up here. And there are natural LVNs that are then revealed in the chart. So there's a natural LVN right here. You also have 123.50. So that's a zone of support here. Bulls want to defend right in this area for a rotation back toward highs, 23.65. and perhaps higher. So right now we have a range from 23.65 to about 23.54. That range right there is to be faded at the edges until proven otherwise. Overall, this thing continues to trend up. Here's that 23.51 half. That's a very important level. So again, this LVN is a zone where bulls may want to defend. As soon as this thing cannot hold 23.51s, and especially 48 half, that's when you know we may be headed back toward the other end of the range, as I mentioned in the higher time frame. All right, let's take a look at crude oil. Crude oil is seeing a little bit of weakness here today, this morning. If we take a look at the higher time frame chart, the previous session saw a big time move. It's the first time we've tested 55s since the first trading day of the year, right here. And that was the first time in quite a long time. So there was a big time push up. What I mentioned was watch 54.29. This level right here is 54.28. I mentioned watch to see if price holds above it or below it for the day. Because closing back below it after the big rally up here would signify a major rejection of those prices. And that's essentially what happened. We eventually closed back below the day's mid, back below the 54.29s, and left behind a major tail. So this morning already we see prices into the tail being defended into 54 half, and we see price already back down to the previous week's high. Overall, we've known that the top end of this range has been fodder for bears to defend over and over and over, and that would be the expectation here. 54 is obviously a key level, and so that's the last line of defense right now. But overall, you can see a big rejection here. You see the tail being defended. All rotations into the upper end of the range likely to be defended for a shot lower. If this thing were to drop down, you can see a pattern of higher lows here. So I wouldn't be shooting way down here for a target. If this thing were to drop, looking for 52 quarter, 52 half might be a much better option here on the other end of this range, because you know that perhaps a return to 54 could be right around the corner very quickly. All right, let's take a look at the intraday. Here's a look at the intraday time frame. We've been trending lower. You can see here that price rallied off the previous session's close, rallied up, failed off 54.60, and then dropped back to the close, took it offered, and is now holding at lows. So right now, the previous close, very, very important, 54.23. I mentioned that all rotations back up, likely to be defended, as this thing could be headed much lower. So right now, we're heading to new lows. I would say this previous close, very important, and 54.60, very important. If this were to head all the way back here, that's about as high as you'd want it to go before you think this thing may turn down. But for the moment, any bounce likely into the previous close in VWAP could be the next opportunity to defend for a shot at new lows, heading into 53.50. So that could be the next point down. All right, let's take a look here at DX. Here's a higher time frame look. Right here, what we see, we have a recent rally, big time rally from that low off the previous month's low, rallied back up, came within a quarter of hitting our 102 target, our final target, but hit all the targets along the way, hit an impulse high and dropped into the midpoint of that range, and then bounced. That's about 150, bounced right back up. So now price is bouncing off the midpoint and is retesting the midpoint of the larger impulse range here to here, which is 101.652. And then you also have the top of the recent move, which is 101.749, 775. So that's very important up here. But I mentioned before, if there's a rejection here, look for this thing to rally into 102. Should we see a rally into 102, you may see bears looking to defend for a push back to 99.50. The fact that we came ahead of that level and are now retesting offers a prime opportunity for bears to trap above 101.75 and into 102 for a shot at returning this back to 150 and perhaps a move across the range into 99.50. So right now we are coming into the trigger zone, but for what could be a fade opportunity back down. We got to see if there's any rejection should price get above 101.75 and into 102. Here's what it looks like on the intraday time frame. We'll bring that up right here. Go PivotBoss intraday. And from here, what you'll notice is prices rallied significantly here over the last session plus. We've had quite a move. Let's bring this down to a 233 tick chart. There it is. A big push down off 101.75. Here's the midpoint retest. Walked its way right back up. The previous session quite bullish. Right now, any pullback could be seen as a buying opportunity for a push into 101.75 to 102s. I'm not sure how much farther we may see on the way back down, but any pullback into 101.10 or that gap could offer an opportunity to defend yet again as this thing tries for those 101.75s to 102. But again, up here is what we're going to be looking for. If price pushes into this zone, watch to see what happens. Maybe some sort of box reversal could be seen, and that could play it right back down toward the opposite end of the range, perhaps into value down below. All right, lastly, let's take a look at ZB. Here's a look at ZB. We'll bring up the higher time frame first. Again, we've been talking about the higher time frame absorption signature that's developing. This is a larger pattern with lots of energy being developed and built up right in the zone. So that was outside the pattern. Price came back up. They're being absorbed off the lower end. Bears defending the upper end. The expectation right now is bears are defending the previous lows, previous week's midpoint for a shot at pushing into 153.21. So yesterday pre-market, what we talked about was watching 150.18 and looking to reject that area, either at it or just below it. Price got into 150.19 and rejected. Reached the highs today is 151.28 already. So that worked out exactly as we were looking for. We were looking for price to reject the previous low and also the midpoint into this zone for a push higher and perhaps a continuation into 123.51 or 153.21 rather. So right now we got to see if should price push above the 151.28, this recent resistance here that could provide some fuel for a continuation higher. Overall, once price or should price push through this range here, any pullback still seen as a buying opportunity for a continuation into that area. All right, let's take a look at the intraday. On an intraday basis right now, obviously price pushing higher. I mentioned any pullback at the moment could be a buying opportunity. If we squeeze this in a little bit, you can see here the previous session, we were basically looking for this 150.18. It got to 150.19, formed a little box reversal. Traders in the room were able to find that box and was a much better buying opportunity right back to the previous close. And from there, you can see that price came all the way back right into the top of the box here and held. And that's bullish. So that's still a zone here where if price comes into this area, bulls will still look to defend for a rotation right back up. The expectation here is if price can push beyond recent highs here, 150.130, that could open up a continuation into the next upside targets here on a weekly basis. The next major target would be 152.18, followed by 153.06. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this thing plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck and trade well.